Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voice Like a Lion podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pemberton, and today I have Matthew Stafford with me. He has personally coached over 300 store owners. It's probably closer to 1,000 now, knowing this guy. Over 10,000 hours of hands-on e-commerce consulting, helped over 100 of those different store owners I was just talking about go over seven figures. So for those of you who hear 1, 2, 3, 4, that means over $1 million. And he's also hosted the largest yearly e-commerce focus event in North America, BGS Live. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. So we were talking before we even hit record, and that's why I wanted to hit record, is there's so much gold in what you've done. I mean, your story is incredible, and I would love to get into that for a quick second here in a minute. But over all of these stores you've helped, after doing it for yourself, what is one of the biggest takeaways that you've seen for e-commerce stores to go from, let's say, $500,000 to over $1 million a year?
I would say it's the mindset shift of the store owner from I need to sell or show them everything so that they don't leave my site to view their site as a customer that's looking to find a solution to their problem. So
Hmm.
instead of trying to sell them everything you have or show them everything you have, make it super easy for them to navigate the site to find what they're looking for. And that little shift goes from making you the salesy salesman to the guy that's actually taking care of what they came in to look for.
That's so that makes sense to me when I'm talking to you or I'm talking to somebody across the camera or on the phone. How do you do that through text form?
Yeah. So another thing I always tell everybody is your website is your conversation with that person.
Mm,
And so if it's not conversing with them or it's broken communication, and what I mean by that is um, like on the homepage where people put buy now or quick ad, um, I always ask the store owner, does that person have enough information at that point to make a $100 buying decision or a $200 buying decision? And they're like, no. I'm like, so then what are you communicating to that person when you're saying quick ad or quick
hmm
buy or buy it now instead of learn more options, see details so that you don't feel like you're this spammy guy, hurry up, buy it when they don't have enough information. Those types of uh, interactions on the website is poor communication and makes it untrustworthy. And there's a reason why the majority of e-commerce sites convert at 2%. And that means 100 people came and only 2 people bought. There's got to be a disconnect at some point that why did 98 people come there and go, nope, I couldn't find what I want and leave?
I love that. I love this on a lot of different levels because this is something when we work with brands, I talk about a lot, which is educating your potential customers and stop looking at it so transactionally. Especially there was a brand who unfortunately or fortunately, we'll see, is we ended up splitting up. We ended up going different ways. They had a different vision for how they wanted to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. And we just weren't able to meet eye to eye in the negotiating table. Perfectly fine. That happens. And one of the things that and we're still it went well, didn't burn any bridges. We still talk every now and then. But what's fascinating to me is they have this big average order value, but they don't do anything to incentivize these people to learn more about it. There's nothing on there. Like the names of these products make no sense. The description for each product is just a story about how they founded the product. Not even how they found it. It's like, hey, this is where we got the name from. And I asked them this question because some of their stuff is $2,100, and I go, what about this makes it beside there's nothing on here that tells me it's handcrafted, it's handmade. There's nothing on here that explains what it actually is, how it could solve a pain point that I have. There's nothing on here. It's like you just are explaining why you named it this way. And it's like there's for something that pricey, and I've seen it, and I would love to get your insight on this. When it's a bigger buying decision, like $2,100 is way different than $21. So for
Way different.
2,100, there's a lot more education that needs to go into why am I going to buy this from a site I don't really know. You're not that big. Why would I buy it from you when I could go to Louis Vuitton, who I know Louis Vuitton, I kind of know, like, and trust him, and I can also spend $2,100 there. and there's going to be a salesman talk to me, or I could buy it from Louis Vuitton online. So what have you
Yeah.
seen with that? Is that am I on track there, or am I wrong on that?
No, absolutely. The higher the average order value goes up, the less the conversion will be. So we know that
Yeah.
too, and our metrics are adjusted accordingly. But it sounds like that store owner um, has an ego that's getting in the way because he believes in the product
Hmm.
so much that he assumes that the customer is going to. And the only reason why I say he's assuming that is because if he's not sharing it and he's not explaining the value and how they came about it, then he's not actually dealing with the psychological triggers that are required for someone to make a decision. And the truth of the matter is, as much as we all want to think like, oh, I'm different or I'm in control, we all make our buying decisions emotionally and then we justify it with logic. And so if you're not using those triggers in your site, you're giving away sales that would potentially happen if you were.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's why we ended up walking away from the negotiating table. So there's two co-founders. We've really been working with one of them. Just got introduced to the other co-founder, and the one co-founder. So that we were at the table for equity, for rev share. So it was going to be a pretty decent sized deal, and he was about to raise capital, do all the things right, and he's had his ego. We've understood that. We've been working through that. And then he brings a co-founder in. And the co-founder's like, hey, we don't need you. I can take this from, she's the designer. She said, I can take this from where it's at to $5 million dollars in the next 18 months. And mind you, they've been in business 7 years. They haven't hit a million. So I'm sitting there and I go, what, logically, how did you get to that number in that amount of time, changing nothing? And then for him is, so now the co-founders are sitting there battling it out, and it's fascinating to see this dynamic. And I would love to get your insight on this, is because they were kind of the ideal client there for a period of time a little while ago, and about a $500,000. That's where they were when we first came upon them, and we helped scale them up a little bit. We didn't quite get them to a million, but something that's interesting is the one biggest thing that I saw holding them back was the mindset, like the way that they viewed the business, the way that they viewed their customers, the way that they viewed us supporting them. They were stuck in their mindset. So for these brands that you've worked with, because I mean you've worked with a ton, have you seen that get in the way where it's like the mindset of somebody limits the scale of a potential brand?
Um, Not that often, only every day. So, um, legitimately every single day. And we all suffer from that. Like we all
Hmm.
believe what we believe is true, or we wouldn't believe it. And
Yep.
so I can tell you categorically that the more that you work on the 6 inches between your ears, the better the business will do. And everybody thinks like, oh well, getting a coach, how is that going to make my business do better? Um, I coach I coach business entrepreneurs, and every single one of them shatters their goals in their store after being coached because it is 100% your mind that is the way that you interact with people, the way that you look at your website, the way that you have a relationship with money, etc. All of those things factor into it. So yes, 100% the person and their mindset and their ability to be coachable has a huge difference in whether their business can hit the $1 million or not.
I think, I mean, that's something I've noticed time and time again, even for me. I think I love that you said what you were talking about with beliefs and the 6 inches between your ears, basically, because this is what I talk about all the time. And you have the people who resonate with it, and the people are just like, oh, no, that's hooey dooey. But I truly believe, I tell people this all the time, is question your beliefs. Like the most dangerous thing about your beliefs is that you believe them.
Yeah.
And so if you're able to question your beliefs, like, why do I actually believe this? Because for most people who don't do that, you're carrying a lot of beliefs that aren't even yours. Like you adopted them over time through friends, through family, through how you were raised. And so you're walking through life, this weird Frankenstein monster of different beliefs that aren't even yours. And if you can take the time to question it and find those beliefs, and honestly always coming back to that and always questioning them, because if you are upgrading your life mentally, upgrading your mindset, you should upgrade your belief system too, to a certain degree.
It
And
will.
I've
Yeah.
and yeah, so I would love for you to talk about that.
Yeah. So I have a mentor that I talk to fairly regularly, and he made a really good point because I used to think I'm really smart and I have a hard work ethic, like I work hard.
Hmm.
Um, and he said to me one time, he goes, "Is there people doing a lot better than you in the same industry?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Then why don't we ask ourselves the question, what if I wasn't smart? Then what would be possible?"
Mm.
And changing it from I am smart and I believe I'm smart closes my mind to new ideas and things that maybe I'm not open to. But if I think, what if I'm not smart? That gives me the ability to go look at what other people are doing, with child's eyes and be curious, and also think like, oh, how could I apply what they're doing in to what I'm doing to make it better instead of, oh, I'm smart. Because as soon as I think I know the right way, or I know
Hmm.
that I'm correct, I'm not looking for other ways that are better. I'm trying to confirm what I already believe.
Very true. So for somebody, if you're coaching someone and they're doing, let's say that they're a newer startup, they've just hit their first 100,000 in their store. There's so many things that you could do as an ecom store owner. How do you help them narrow in what they're going to do, especially in the mind with helping them with the mindset? Like this is where you need to focus. Because I think to your point, there's people that I know that they think they're super smart and that they're just going to do it themselves. I gave that example earlier, but yet the results aren't there that they want to see. The results aren't there even comparatively to anyone in their same industry. So how would you help somebody in that state where it's like, okay, I'm helping them pass their mindset, and then what's the next step that you would give them that's maybe more practical, like a technical aspect to their store, let's say?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say first, it's going to be the words that they use,
Mm.
their choice of words, because words are spells. And you would be shocked how many people use the words, well, I need to do this or I can't do this. Well, as soon as you say that you need to do something, your body naturally resists that. If you say, I choose to do something, totally different. Your body is not resisting it at all. It's actually trying to look for a way to do it. So changing from I can't to I choose, or I need to I choose, um, makes a huge difference in what you'll get out of yourself and what you'll get out of other people. And everything is a choice, even though we don't believe it is a lot of times, or we're convinced that, this is the only choice we have. It's just not true. And so learning to say I choose instead of I need makes a huge difference, especially on the smaller store owners who are starting to get that a little bit of success, but feel overwhelmed, or else their egos getting in the way and they think they know everything.
So what is a big thing? I love that, by the way, because the is actually fascinating. You were saying to say I choose instead of I need. And I've heard the other one. I tell my son this all the time. There's two things I tell him. It's like, hey, just be aware of what you're saying. Is one is like, oh, I know that. It's like as soon as you say
Yeah.
you know that, you just completely shut down to hearing anything else. It may be the same book that you've read 100 times, and you're going to get a different perspective if you say, oh, I don't know how this. It's like, oh, I know exactly how this goes. I know what happens in this chapter. It's like, no, be open. So just
Yeah.
staying open minded. But you said there was one that you said it's like I need to, because that's something where it's like, oh man, I need to do this, and I'll write it down. And I said that to myself. It's like, okay, I need to do, and I literally felt my chest tighten up. And I went,
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting. And so I said the same thing as I said, I choose to do this. And then all of a sudden, I actually felt my chest relax. And I went, oh, that's really fascinating. I'd never
Yeah.
tried that.
Yeah. So if I push against you, you'll naturally resist.
Yep.
And that's exactly what's happening. Our words are either creating that resistance or move forward. And so the words matter a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say that that's probably one of the very first things to get to. And then also to know what stories that we have playing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of us, in business, we're trying to build something that makes other people impressed by us so that we feel like we're good enough. And believe it or not, we are good enough whether the business succeeds or fails. But we're using that as a tool in order to feel good inside. And
Mm.
so understanding some of the deeper psychological things will actually give you a way, way higher percentage of success through the process.
That's really good. I needed to hear that. I know, well, like with my son's fascinating. I mean, he's intellectually he's astounding. The things that he can pick up, the way that he can do things. he also cracks me up though because I know how intellectual he is, and I there'll be times it'll be something super simple. He'd just say, "I can't do it. It's impossible," and I'll say, "Okay." Liam's his name. I say, "Okay, Liam. So let me ask you a question." He goes, "Okay, what?" I say, "So you're saying that if I took this problem to 7.8 billion people, that no one would ever be able to figure it out?" And he goes, and he'll just like stop talking. I said, "No, that's what you're saying, right? You're saying that you can't do it and it is impossible. There's no one can figure this out." And then all of a sudden, because I've challenged that mindset, he will go and he'll figure it out. And I go, "Oh, look at that. You did it. You figured it out. I'm proud of you." And he's like, and he never says thank you. But that's just one of those things where there's so many times in my life. I mean, even what you were just saying is real. I'll just be on this show. I'm like I said, it's conversational and we just go wherever it is there's been plenty of times where I did that exact same thing when there was a story I didn't tell before we got on here. My wife and I, we were really young. I was 20, she was 19, just had our son. She doesn't go back to work. She goes into an MLM. She makes a couple $100. I quit my job because I think that this is like the golden revolution of my entire life. We lose everything because I have no skills. And then I just hated life. I hated business. I hated everything. And then I just remember my parents told me that I would never get a job without knowing somebody, without having a degree. And they were just like, we can't help you do all these things. So they were going to try to network me into all these other things. Like, if we don't help you, you're not going to make it. And I got this full time position by myself. I actually don't think I've ever talked about this. Fascinating. But I get this full time position, and I immediately, once I knew that I was going to stay, that once I became the best in that place, once I was getting paid really well, at that time really well, I immediately it manifested itself in this truck that cost more than our entire house, and all these things I wanted to put on it because I wanted to show them. And I would go to my parents' house, and my wife was like, "Isn't this just a little bit crazy that you're doing that?" I said, "No, I want my dad every single time he sees it to know that I did this without him." And then looking back on that, I was like, "Man, that's a hurt person who is
Yeah.
just trying to exhibit the." And it was fascinating because like that did nothing. It's like it actually does
Yeah,
nothing for you.
we do it unconsciously. You're not that's not a logical decision. It's
Yeah.
something that's happening from the back. So yeah, learning those stories of why you don't feel good enough or why you don't feel worthy have a massive impact on the way that you treat the business and how you move
Mm.
it forward. And so for sure, believe it or not, like in order to get those people that many people consistently over that $1 million mark. We have a bunch that have made it a $10 million mark too, and a couple to the 100 million now. But
Wow.
the point is, um, you don't get there without doing some mindset work too. Business really is the ultimate inner game. Like when you show up at work, business doesn't say, "Oh, because you read a book this week, we're gonna play nice."
Yeah.
It's literally gonna show you every single day where you're not showing up, where you're not good enough, where there's fires to be put out. It's gonna test your will, and so not having a strong mind in business will kill you.
So what would you say to someone who they're scaling up pretty rapidly? I'll use the examples you just used of the different kinds of store owners. So let's say that they have a good enough mindset to go from 0 to 1 and then from 1 to 10, and now they want to go to 100 million. You know this way better than I do because I haven't done that yet. Is there's going to be new challenges that they're going to run into. How would you help them break through the mental roadblocks that are going to stop them, basically the thermostat in their life that's going to stop them from staying at 10 million? How do you help them break through that to go to 100 million?
Yep. And to me, it's very simple because I believe that we all have a set point of what we think is where our life should be and the way that we should treat people and how much money we should make. It's our identity. And the only way to raise that set point in your identity is to have 100% integrity with yourself. And so,
Mm.
how many times do you say, "Oh, I'm gonna go work out, 3 days a week," and then you do it for a month or two, and before you know it, you're back to your old habit. Well, essentially, what you told yourself was, "I'm gonna do something for me, and I'm gonna do better." And then when you didn't do it, you told yourself, "Yep, see, I wasn't worth it." And so you've lost integrity with yourself. And so instead of that set point going from you can handle 100 grand a month or 100 grand a year to 110, it's actually went down to 95. And then when it gets lower, you're like, oh, I don't like this. It doesn't feel good. So you work hard to raise that temperature back up to 70. If you do the
Yep.
same thing when all of a sudden you have a windfall of a bunch of money and you go up to 80 or 90, you turn the air conditioning on and bring it back to 70. And so you need to constantly be monitoring if you're fueling the fire or if you're trying to cool it off. And typically that comes from being out of integrity with yourself. If you say you're going to do something, because we can figure out what the next step is. And if you say you're going to do it, but then you don't do it, you've lost integrity with yourself and you'll see your business suffer or stagnate at a certain period.
I love that because that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, I've seen this over the past 6 months, even in our business. Is I there was a certain point in time where I really believed that I was working hard, and then I realized what hard work actually was, and all of a sudden my definition for that completely changed. And then what was hard work in a past season now has just become the standard. And it's fascinating what my mind, when I told my mind, it's like, this is what we're going to do. And then it's like, this is impossible. There's no way we can do this. And then once I just said, we're going to do it anyways, and then did it, and then realized, oh, wait, I could actually systemize this to where this is just the standard. This is not just some extra, extraterrestrial, extra level of hard work. It's like all of a sudden work looks different. And it's just exactly what you said. And it's who you are in the dark. I think even to what you were saying, because I mean, if I say I'm going to eat 3 chips and then I eat 30 chips, all of a sudden my unconscious mind is in there saying, well, I can't trust you because you said you were going to do one thing and you haven't. And
Yeah.
we don't realize that it's like, oh, that's just chips. It's like, but if you do that every single time, multiple times per day, multiple times a week, multiple times a month, multiple times a year, you all of a sudden don't trust yourself. So if you don't trust yourself, how you're not going to be able to have good business partners. You're not going to trust them. You're going to see things happen if you're married or in your relationships, you're going to not trust them as much because you can't trust yourself. That's
Yep.
fascinating. I've never thought about
Yeah.
it. I love this. I didn't expect to go here because I
Yeah.
love this so much because I've always wondered, because I've thought about it in two ways, going from zero to a million in literally going from zero to $100,000 a month in less than 6 months. There was a lot for us that we had to learn to go through that. Like, I think that people have a misconception that you just have to work really hard and you can be a millionaire. It's like, to a certain degree you do have to work hard, but if you don't have the mindset on, and you're not able to release things to other people and delegate and be able to build teams, be able to build people, healthy people, you're never going to scale to that amount. Like when we were doing 200-300 orders a day, there's no way that me and my wife would have been able to do that only on our own. We had to have teams. And to have teams, you have to be willing to trust people that maybe they're not going to do it as good as you, but at least you're not having to do it and you can focus on other aspects of the business. So what do you see when people are, I'll just use us as an example. So we're sitting there, we're doing about 100,000. We got up to about 140,000 dollars a month. And then let's say that business owner is there and they want to go from that. And then they want to go to where from $1 million a year to $10 million a year. What are some of the things that they should do to be able to get there?
Man, it's pretty, I think it's as varied as the variations of people.
Mm,
Because really, the business is built by people.
yeah.
And so a lot of times people try to solve the business problem without solving the people problem. And, or they have a tendency to think it's them, not me. But the truth of the
Mm,
matter is, how come when I coach, I have a student that he just turned 31, and he did 36 million this year.
wow.
2 years ago, he did 1 million. 1 year ago, he did 14 million. This year, he did 36 million. He's 31 years old. He's very coachable. If there were several times through that process where he would try to sabotage it because it was way more money than what he ever thought he was going to need or want or could even imagine. And so, yeah, 100%. He had to learn how to self-regulate and emotionally regulate himself, and then also do that as a leader for his people. And when you
Mm,
model it for them, then they start doing it. Most people think like, oh, I can't do that because my team won't, or oh, I can't do that because my team can't, or my team, whatever. They blame it on them instead of taking the responsibility. And the one thing that I always notice, uh, most of the time, well, I would say 100% of the time, when the owner gets coaching or gets a mentor, the whole business does better. What does that mean? It means the owner is actually the bottleneck
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to think that, but they're literally, I'm the bottleneck for my business. It's not going to get bigger than me unless I empower other people to do more than me. You're the bottleneck for your business, and until you realize that, you have to you look other places. You can solve a whole lot of problems, but it can only come through the bottleneck. And so the bottleneck has to open up, and that's usually the owner's mindset.
That's actually pretty fascinating. You were talking about the student who just turned 31. I actually just turned 31 not too long ago, and I can fall pretty much in line with those things, except for the 36 million. Now, I would love to fall in line with that. I haven't quite got there
Yeah.
yet, but there's so if you were this is for me. This is something I know is really going to help me, and there's going to be people listening to this that's going to help them. One of the things I've noticed in my life that has been a sticking point that has definitely closed the bottleneck on my life when it comes to relationships, when it comes to business, when it comes to a lot of different areas, honestly, is the way that I take criticism. So, with that being said, how would you work with, let's say it was me, and you're trying to give me a piece of advice that you know for sure can help me be able to up level my business. Let's say I'm doing 1.4 million. It's like, Steven, I know that this can help you. Even if you don't say this out loud, it's like, I know that this can help him go from 1.4 to easily 2. If he would just take this one piece of advice, and you see me start closing up, what is a piece of advice you would give to me to be able to actually learn how to receive criticism and adapt it and remain coachable? Because I've always said that I'm coachable until there's this one moment where I don't agree with the coach and what they're giving me.
And how do you respond to it?
So I think it depends on who it is. So if it's someone in a pay capacity, it's like, okay, I'm paying you, so I'm going to take that advice. But if it's something,
People who pay attention.
yes, and then I would like to even say, even there's times where I've definitely 100% embodied this, like, well, I'm the smartest person in the room. So when I sit there and I say, well, I'm the smartest person in the room, then somebody tries to give me advice, and even if I think it's good advice, if I say, well, you're not, you don't know what I know, you haven't been through what I've been through, you haven't seen these things the way I've seen it. Now all of a sudden I've closed myself off to any possibility of learning and growing. And there's been plenty of times when it's personal. It's like, Steven, this is the reason why your business is not growing is because you are in the way. It's like you keep seeing things this way, you keep getting on your team this way, or you're just releasing your team kind of to their own whims, and they're doing whatever they want to. I need you to be a little bit more structured in this area. I need you to stay a little bit more accountable. This is what it looks like. There's times where I would
So,
take that and almost as a personal attack.
well, right there, part of the reason is because you said, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, like a whole bunch of times
Mm,
instead of I choose to.
yeah,
And so, literally, what you did in that conversation or that little bit
the
of a
dialogue.
rant,
Yeah,
yeah, you literally said, I need, like 4 or 5 times right in a row. And so, what are you doing? You're building up tension in yourself right
mm,
there. And so, learning to choose those things, choose to
yeah,
communicate, choose to accept criticism constructively, choose to look at things from, like you said, you are the smartest one in the room because you don't know what I've been through. You don't know what I've looked at. You don't know that about the other person either.
it's very true. Yeah.
And so if you can look at it from that point, like, man, they've probably been through some things. There might be a little bit of wisdom in what they said.
Hmm. I think that this is something I've been adapting to recently, is being able to tell myself a different story of someone else. Because in the past, they used to, and this is how I was raised. And I'm thankful for my parents; they did the best they could. And my dad
Yeah.
used to always tell me that it's like you have to have a chip on your shoulder. Like you can only watch out for you. You have, and those are things I'm still working on getting rid of those beliefs. But
Unlearning.
yes, I'm still unlearning that, but I've learned it recently that what if that person cut you off and they have no ill intent? What if that person is actually has your best interest at heart? What if you just create a new story where, okay, let's say that I'm talking to Matthew and he has helped 300 plus store owners and he's helped them go to $100 million, which is where I want to be one day. What if he does have the wisdom? But also, here's the thing: is like, what if I didn't know any of that? And the thing was, we're just having a conversation, and I just said that. And I said that in my mind as you're sitting there, and you're telling me some ways to look at my business, to look at my life. If I'm saying, well, what if he has done these things, and I'm just prejudging him and thinking all these things when realistically that may not be the truth. Now, if I can keep myself open in that right, I'm way more open to hearing anything that anyone has to say. And it also takes me back to something that I think I've worked on being a cornerstone of my life is like treat the janitor like the CEO, because you don't know who the janitor either used to be or is going to be,
Yeah.
and you don't know who they know. So I've been working on truly embodying that.
Yeah, I would say the same. Not just from a standpoint of you don't know who they know or what you're going to get from it, but just in being kind.
Hmm.
Typically, if you're doing something to get something back, that's more indicative of the relationship that you have with yourself, that you're very transactional rather than um, you playing the long game. And I'm quite a bit older than you, and so I will tell you, hands down, the long game always works. So that's a much better. I mean, it's harder and takes a little more patience, but uh, doing nice things, even when they can't pay you back,
Hmm.
will end up paying way more than being nice to them because you don't know who they are.
Oh, 100%. I do solely agree with that. I mean, there's been so many times I've made introductions, given away the whole playbook just to be able to help somebody. But it's something that you said right there, and it did pique my interest, is based on what I said and how I presented that moment with the janitor and the CEO. When you heard me say that, what was it that you heard that said, "Oh, this is more transactional than the long game"? Because even for me, as I think, well, let's say the janitor. I'm just going to give you my thought process. Is let's say because there's a guy I know that this is a real story. Is that he was a multimillionaire, lost everything, had to basically flee the state he was in, and he became a janitor, and then now he's back to being a multimillionaire. So to me, it's like, well, if I'm kind, I'm generous, I'm really nice to this guy, I'm giving him all the things I can to help support him. Long term, he becomes a multimillionaire again. It's like I'm just friends. I have this network. But based on what I said, what led you to think, oh, this is more transactional than long game? Because I'm honestly just want to learn from you in this moment.
Yeah. I just the fact that I never know who they are, what
Yeah,
they know, or what the relationship can bring farther down the road.
yeah,
Um, if you just treated everybody like they were amazing, and that you would have an amazing network, whether
mm,
it's the janitor or your waiter or whoever. So it's not about what they'll give you in the long run. That literally will always work out if you just treat everybody kind. Because most people
I
don't.
like that. That's good.
Most people are 100% focused on themselves. Because we're all the main character in our own movie,
That's true.
and
Yeah.
so if you can stand out um by including other people and treating them like they matter. People, their greatest need is to feel seen, heard, and
Hmm.
accepted. And so if people feel seen and heard around you, um they'll break through walls to introduce you to people that they think would help you.
Mm. I'm taking that for a second because that's really good. Just thinking on that because that's what I've seen when I sit there and I think back on it. It's like that's what I've seen in my life. And it's also just been interesting to play the long game when you need to play the short game. When it's
Yeah,
like, okay, I need to make some transactions, but it's also when your heart posture is, I truly just want to help these people. I'm just going to give, and expect nothing back. And it's like, but it would be nice to get something back, right? Especially right
yeah,
now. That'd be nice in those time periods when I was going through those things. But yeah, that's really good.
awesome. Yeah, no, I will definitely say it's harder to do it when you need the transaction right then, but that also feels um, they can feel that difference
Yeah,
between I'm giving selflessly and they'll want to work with you compared to a transaction. I'm giving you this, or I'm only going to give you just enough so that you want to buy.
yep,
The truth of the matter is, I 100% believe give your very best information every single time to everybody, because the truth of the matter is, most of the time, they're not buying from you because your information's better. They're buying
hmm,
because your information is good and they don't have time to implement it. So
yeah.
they need help with that.
That's what I heard from someone. So this is an interesting thing I would love to pivot to for a second. Is I heard this from someone I thought was really good. It's like give away everything, give away 100%, and then for free, and then you charge for the implementation. And so for people like us, so you consult, I consult, we are getting paid to give them the information. So what does that look like if you and I were talking and you were going to work with me in the consulting capacity? Is how would you present that if I'm just asking you a bunch of questions, getting a lot of insight, and you're giving me everything you got? What would incentivize me to then work with you if you're not actually going to implement the Facebook ad strategy or implement the better supplier relationships, things like that?
Well, if you're not going to implement it, then I wouldn't want to work with you anyways. That's
Yeah.
for me, that's a dead relationship. And
Well, I
and
mean, like
I,
you implement it. So what I'm saying is, like, if I'm asking you a bunch of questions about, and you're like, well, this is what you need to work on. These are the things you need to work on. It's like, okay, great. Can you do that for me? And you go, well, I can tell you how to do that. What would incentivize me to move forward with that conversation? This is for me more than, and for everyone who's listening who is a small to medium sized business owner, selling their time, selling their consulting, selling even their services.
yeah, well, I think that there's a big difference between knowing and understanding. Like, there's
That's
a lot
true.
of people that have book knowledge, but their life isn't any different.
Yeah.
And so, someone, I always find it very funny that people go, "Oh, I read 50 books this year." I'm like, cool. What was your favorite one? And then they have to like really think about it. And then I'm like, oh, what was your main takeaway from that? It was a good book. They don't have that. And so for me, I would rather read 3 books a year or read the 3 books 5 times,
Yeah.
so that it actually is changing my life. Like there's a big difference between knowing and doing. And so I would say that in those conversations, it's not a matter of I'm just trying to transfer the knowledge to you. I'm trying to get you to take action. And so if I'm
Mm.
just trying to prove how smart I am and give you all the right answers, that's going to be a short-lived, it's going to be a short-lived engagement. But if I'm actually getting you to get more from yourself or to take action on stuff, when you get results, what's that going to make you want to do? It's going to make you want to do more with
Yeah.
me. So it's not about me telling you all the smart things. It's me getting you to take action on the things that matter.
That's really good. That's a great perspective. I mean, I've said that, but I don't think I've ever really truly thought of it in that way. It was funny. I had a consulting call earlier today with a client, and we were talking through the things that he needed to do. And he said, "So you're going to do that for me, right?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Wait, so I have to do this?" And I go, "Yeah, that's what we talked about." It's like, this is what we've literally talked about for the last couple hours. And he goes, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Well, it may take me a little bit longer." And I said, "That's okay." It's like the longer it takes you to do it, it's like the longer it's going to take you to see the profitability that you're looking for to hit the goals that you said were really important to you. This is going to take you longer. So what are you willing to move around for that? And he went, you're right. And then, so I think it's just that right there is really, really good. So for everyone listening, because there's quite a few different people that listen to this. There's small to medium sized businesses, ecom brands, especially. There's angel investors, venture capitalists, all sorts of different people. How do people get into your network? What is a way for them to keep up with you?
Our website's buildgrowscale.com. I still look at all my emails, so it's matt at buildgrowscale.com. And the funny thing is, the probably our best partners are venture capital and paid media companies because
Mm,
when we can go in and take a website and change it from 2% to 4% or 6%,
yep.
that gives them the ability to buy more media, to scale, and do all the things that they need for their valuations.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I'm gonna make sure to have. I'm gonna get all those links from you because I'm gonna make sure it's in the show notes. One big thing. This is just a complete aside. Is for this podcast because there's big podcasts that I've been on. There's big podcasts that I see all the time, and they don't do any of that. Like they don't put anything in the show notes for the guest. I have been a guest hundreds of times, and that is a just. I'm a huge stickler for that. It's like you just gave me your time. So they're more than just having people view this. I want people to actually take action, follow you on the social medias, if that's LinkedIn, if that's Instagram, if that's going to your website. That's the call to action. Like I want people to actually take action on those things. So all of that, I will get all that and make sure it's in the show notes.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Matt, thank you again for being here. For everyone listening, thank you guys for tuning in. Go back and listen to this one again. This was actually, for me, truthfully, this is one of the more fun ones I've ever done because this is the first time ever that we kind of dived into my psychology. Which the thing is fascinating about that is I know there's so many people who battle with the same things, who go through the same things, and they don't ever talk about it, and then it comes to a head in some other area of their lives. So Matthew, thank you for taking the time to help me work through it, and I know so many other people as well that are listening.
Absolutely. I love doing it. That's what I do all day, every day. I enjoy it.
Wow, awesome. Well, thank you again for being here. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.